everyone, this is Karen from the Peace Discipline channel, where you can learn all about non-violent discipline. Today's video is part of a series on what not to do in discipline, and we will be looking at shaming and humiliating children and what we can do instead of these hurtful and harmful practices. This video will be relevant to parents as well as to teachers and anyone else who works with or cares for children. Shaming a child is when, instead of focusing on the behavior that needs to be corrected, the parent or teacher tries to make the child feel as bad as possible, bad about themselves. They may use words like naughty, bad, pathetic, hopeless, useless, or shaming messages like, don't be a baby, what's wrong with you, how could you, or you should be ashamed of yourself. Shaming and humiliating are similar, but humiliation has a more public aspect to it, of feeling really bad in front of others. There don't need to be a lot of others. For instance, when a parent beats a child, they often remove items of clothing, such as pulling a child's pants down before they beat them. And the child may feel very humiliated even if the only other person present is the person beating them. But it gets worse if this is done in front of other people too. Physical punishment is usually humiliating and does damage that goes far beyond the physical pain of a situation. Humiliation is often used by teachers too. I heard a story in a workshop once. A young child in boarding school who wet the bed one night. She was made to stand naked the next day with her wet sheets around her while the whole school filed past her to assembly. She was only 5 years old. That's a rather extreme example of humiliation. Another example, when I was in primary school, I was sent by the teacher to take a message to another class. When I entered the other class, I immediately felt like something was wrong. Children were laughing and snickering, not in a good way. And then I saw what was happening. In the corner, in the dustbin, stood a child. This teacher had a practice of sending children to the corner, or if she was really angry, sending them to the dustbin in the corner. She would say, "You're rubbish. Go and stand in the dustbin." The child would stand in the dustbin with their back to the class, while everybody laughed at them. That's another example of humiliation. I've often heard of teachers sending children out of class to a younger class, saying, "You're a baby, you need to go and sit with the younger children." I have no objection to a teacher putting a child in a timeout if they're out of control, but adding a humiliating message like that makes it destructive and is not part of nonviolent discipline. Recently, a young man shared with me how when he was in school as an autistic learner, he was in a special needs class. One of the ways that teachers in this school used to punish people in the mainstream class was to tell them that there's something wrong with them and they should go to the special needs class. This may have been designed to humiliate the child sent out of class, but think how humiliating this was for all children already in the special needs class who were doing their work perfectly well. Have someone punished by being told that they were like them. Things like this hurt and scar children. I'm sure that as you listen to me speak about these things, many of you can remember examples yourselves of things that were said or done to you that were shaming or humiliating, and how painful that was. Shaming and humiliating children are incredibly common practices in our society. Many of us experienced these at home or at school when we were growing up. And aside from the damage this did to your self-concept, it may have also legitimized this as a form of punishment. In other words, you started to see shaming and humiliating as active ingredients of good discipline. You started to believe that your job as an adult would be to make the child feel as bad as possible about what they did. Sometimes parents stop hitting, then compensate for that by really laying on the shame, but this simply replaces physical violence with emotional violence instead. I'm really happy to tell you that shaming and humiliating children are not active ingredients of good discipline. We don't need them. In fact, they do harm. When a child does something wrong, it's our job as teachers and parents to guide them, to reassure when they have made a mistake and feeling less confident about themselves, to teach them what to do instead, and to support them to do better in future, not to abuse our power by shaming and humiliating them. Let's look at what we can do instead. First, let's get in touch with how a child might be feeling and use these feelings to guide us. Think about the last time that you made a mistake or did something wrong. Remember how bad you felt about it. Now ask yourself what you needed from your loved ones in this situation or from the other people who knew what you did. Did you need them to hammer on at you until you felt as bad as possible? You already felt bad. You knew you did something wrong. Did you need them to try and make you feel worse? Or did you need reassurance? Did you need them to remind you that you are loved and cared for even when you make mistakes, and that you can count on their support to do better in future? It's the same for children. So what can we do when a child makes a mistake? There are many different tools we can use, and I'm going to mention a few of those here. One possibility is to guide them by telling them what to do instead. So instead of harping on what they did wrong or what they mustn't do, focus on what they do need to do in future. A good way to do this is to say next time and then explain what you would like them to do the next time the situation comes up. Another option, if they have done something wrong, is to guide them into some form of restorative action. In other words, rather than making them feel as bad as possible about what they've done wrong, guide them in ways to put right. Perhaps they need to apologize, or perhaps they need to do something to make amends. Sometimes the child may have been out of control when they did the wrong thing, and we need to recognize that when a child loses it and does something they don't normally do, they are not in touch with the thinking parts of their brain. So if they've become very upset, perhaps they're having a tantrum, and they do things that they wouldn't normally do, like smash things or hurt somebody, we need to recognize that they weren't able to think straight at the time and not treat them as though they're engaged in premeditated action because they are a bad person. Instead, after everybody has cooled down, we can guide them into restorative action, as I've said. Or if you're in the moment where they're dysregulated, you may want to use something like active listening to help calm them down and help them come to you instead of at you with their feelings. Active listening may reassure them enough to calm them down. Or if that's not working, perhaps you could use a brief timeout for them to cool down or to keep others safe from them for a bit. It should be done in a calm way, as if you are keeping the child safe from doing something to themselves or to others that could be harmful, as if you are there for them and doing what they need, instead of trying to hurt or humiliate them or to punish them for not managing in that moment. Remember that humiliation and shaming are not active ingredients of good discipline. We need to be thinking not how to punish a child when they've done something wrong, but how to support them to do better. And there are many tools we can use to support children to do better. If they're not motivated and therefore not doing what we want them to do, perhaps they need more encouragement and a tool like reward, which can be very motivating. If they're out of control, we can use a containing skill like a timeout. If they won't do something that you want them to do, we can use something like a when-then statement. When you've done this thing that I want you to do, then you can do that other thing that you want to do, like go outside or play with your friend. It's a when-then statement. Perhaps we need to adjust our expectations of the child. Perhaps we need to be there for them more. So if they are messing up because they are not managing, perhaps we need to take responsibility that we have given them too much to manage and reduce those expectations and give them more support. If we can see a situation coming which they usually do not manage, perhaps we need to prepare them more for it or prompt them and remind them what to do. There are many ways in which we can teach and guide children, conveying clear expectations and giving clear directions as to what we would expect. One of the ways to do this is perhaps to model what we would like them to do. We can use this even after they've done something wrong, modeling what we would like them to do instead. Saying something like, we don't call people names, we don't hit. Why don't you tell him that you're upset with him? Like, I'm very upset with you. Yes, like that. And now tell him what it was that upset you. So there, instead of making the child feel bad because they lashed out, modeling what they can do instead. There are many other tools that we can use instead of shaming and humiliating children. But perhaps one of the best ways to teach this is to share some real situations with you so that you can see the difference in the approach of the adult. In one of our peace discipline workshops, a father shared how his young son had an accident and wet his pants. Exasperated, the father grabbed one of his baby's diapers and waved it in front of the boy's face, saying, "Are you a baby? Must I put a nappy on you like your younger sister?" This is obviously a shaming message and an action designed to humiliate the little boy. The boy started crying, and immediately the dad saw that he had really hurt his son, and he felt terrible. In a moment of frustration, he had defaulted to the kind of thing his parents said to him when he was a child. But now, looking at the tears running down his son's face, he saw and remembered how much words like this can hurt. He took his son in his arms and apologized sincerely to him. He reassured him that at his age, when you're learning, everyone has accidents, and that he himself had had accidents like that as a child. He decided never to shame or humiliate him like that again, and resolved to show his son that he was loved no matter what and could count on his dad's support to do better in future. I was so grateful to this dad for sharing this experience. It's a lovely example of how he started out doing something that he'd never questioned growing up. He'd been on the receiving end of that kind of thing, and it had become normalized for him. But this dad was sensitive enough to see that he was hurting his child and to change gear, to break the cycle of emotional violence by recognizing that he was doing harm, and instead of defending himself and making excuses or putting the blame on his son, apologized profusely and let that feeling of guilt that he felt guide him to do better in future, so that his children could grow up in a much safer environment than he had. Here's another example. A child did something wrong, and his mother spoke to him about it, explaining what it was that he had done wrong. The little boy said, "I feel so bad." This, by the way, is a good sign. When a child can say something like that, it shows that they feel safe enough with you to share their vulnerable emotions. Mom reassured him. She said, "I know you feel bad. I also feel bad when I've done something wrong." "You know why you feel bad?" "Why?" said the boy. "You feel bad," said the mom, "because you're a good person. And when a good person does something wrong, they get a bad feeling inside because our feelings are there to guide us. And a bad feeling like that tells you that you don't feel good about what you did because you're a good person, and good people don't like to do things that hurt other people. And so your feeling is guiding you. It's telling you what you don't want to do in future." "Yes," said the little boy, "that is how I feel. I was just thinking that I don't ever want to do that again." And the mom said, "That's good. Well done. Your feeling is trying to guide you, and you're getting the message your feeling is trying to give you. Is there anything else that that feeling might be guiding you to do?" And in addition to deciding not to do that again, his mom supported him in apologizing to the other person as well. What I'd like you to notice in this story is the role that the mom played. Instead of making her child feel bad, taking on more shame, The mom's role here is to reassure him, help him know that he's loved, that he can show her his vulnerable emotions, like to say to her, I feel really bad because this happened, and that he can count on her support to help him work out what he needs to do to support to put things right and to do better in future. Children need to feel safe with us, emotionally as well as physically. And how can they feel safe if at any point we might shame or humiliate them? Shaming and humiliation are not active ingredients of good discipline. They're the opposite. They make children want to hide their vulnerability from us, deny that they did anything wrong, lie, or cover up their actions. Aside from doing lasting damage to the child's self-concept, shaming and humiliation make it harder for children to remain open to us, and so they miss a lot of the guidance and support they could receive. When children do something wrong or make a mistake, what they actually need is our love and support. They may need reassurance. They may need guidance about what to do instead or what to do to put right. Even though we experience shaming and humiliation growing up, let's not repeat this. Let's break the cycle of emotional violence. Let's help the next generation grow up with much more safety so that they can live their best lives and be their best selves. That's all for now. I'll be back soon with more in this series of what not to do in discipline and more information on non-violent tools that we can use instead. I hope you'll subscribe and press like if you find this video helpful. And if you would like to find out more about nonviolent discipline, you can also visit the Peace Discipline website. Thanks for watching.